Hey friends, it's Laura. Welcome back, or if you are new here, welcome. In today's planty video, I am going to be showing you plants that look like this. Do you have a plant that looks like this? You probably know what this is. This is a struggling plant. These are plants that are struggling, but are worth saving. Sometimes a plant struggles and I just throw it in the compost, I move on. But if it is a plant that was really, really beautiful before, or I know that it could be really, really beautiful, I'm going to do everything in my power to save it. Doesn't always work, but I'm gonna try my best. So today, I'm going to show you my 4 or 5 plants that are struggling, that look like this. They're not going to be beautiful. I'm gonna share what I think went wrong, what I think happened to them, why they are struggling, and then I'm gonna show you the routines and regimens that I have been doing with these plants to help heal them, to help bring them back. You can see this one does have a new leaf coming in, which is new, so the regimen is working for this guy. If you are interested in seeing a bunch of struggling plants, stay tuned. So we are going to just start right off with the plant I was holding in the intro. This is my Philodendron Varicosum. And as you can see, there is a new leaf coming in there. We have also this little stem that has a little bit of growth there as well. About this plant, I bought this plant last spring. It was about this tall, had a few leaves. It was definitely a juvenile plant, but it was really healthy. It didn't appear to have any pests, and it did really well for a while, but then I wasn't keeping an eye on it and it did get thrips. It did not come to my house with thrips. I suspect it got thrips from my Syngonium albo. The Syngonium albo just sort of always has these cycles of thrips. I've talked about that in the past. And so because this was sort of in the back of my shelf, I didn't notice the thrips right away, and it dropped a bunch of leaves. Once it dropped the leaves, I started looking at it more intensely and I did see some thrips. Now there was not a ton of thrips. It was not a huge infestation, but it was enough to kill off those leaves. So what I did initially is I snipped off all of the leaves that were damaged, which was all of them. So this was just literally a stem with no leaves. I sprayed it down with my DIY solution of neem oil, dish soap, and water. Sprayed that all down. I even sprayed it into the soil and like washed that into the soil. And then I isolated this plant. This plant currently is living in my office where it is away from my other plants, and it's just been chilling. And then once a week, I have been doing the routine that I'm gonna show you in a moment. I'm gonna show you all of the struggling plants and then I'll show you the routine that I've been following with them. And we have a new leaf creeping out there, and I don't see any pests on it right now. I am looking at it as I talk because, you know, why not? But it's gonna stay isolated just until it's got some leaves, it's thriving again, and I can feel confident bringing it out here. But that is plant number 1, my Philodendron Varicosum. Next plant is my Philodendron Mykins. I suspect the issue with this plant was also thrips. If it was thrips, it was a very, very small amount of thrips. This plant has done this before where it grows out, the leaves look beautiful, no big issue, and then out of nowhere, the leaves yellow and fall off. So what I think happened is there were a few thrips on the plant. They were eating happily, but because I wasn't on this plant and treating them, they kind of went from one leaf to the next to the next. I don't think it was a huge amount of thrips, but it was enough for this plant to lose most of its leaves. So that is what I suspect happened. I was just about to say I don't see any thrips, and then I looked on this new leaf that is kind of misshapen and I saw a thrip. There's the leaf, and that little black speck is the thrip. And the way I know that it's a thrip, because it could easily just be a speck of dust, is when I touched it, it moved. So this plant has thrips. And what I did when I found the thrips is I cut off, like the other one, I cut off all of the affected leaves, which was essentially all of them, sprayed it down with the neem oil, and I had it isolated for a while, and then I didn't see any thrips, and I did put it back out here, as you can see. and that was a mistake. The vines are all pinned to the soil, you can see that, and that is just because it was super, super long, and then when I cut off all the leaves, it looked really silly. So then I pinned these stems to the soil. But you can see here, this is rooting into the soil after being pinned to the soil. So Philodendron Mykins will root right into the soil if you pin it down, and then the plant will be a lot stronger because it has multiple root systems feeding it. So that plan is making me think I can really strengthen the plant, help it come back healthier so that this thrips cycle doesn't continue. I've also, and I'll show you in the routine that I've been following, I've been adding some things in here to strengthen the plant so that if the thrips are still in here or come back, the plant is a little bit more equipped to fight off those pests as well. We're gonna save this. I want to save it, even though I get so frustrated with it. I feel like it's worth saving, and just seeing all this new growth makes me want to keep trying. So this is plant number 2. All right, next plant. This one is probably the worst off of all of them. This is my Monstera Peru. And you can see in there, there are some growth points, but they don't look very strong. But it is still alive. This, of all of my struggling plants, I feel like this one might not make it. But because I love Monstera Peru so much, I am going to try my best. I don't really love Monsteras right now, just that's my personal preference at the moment. But Monstera Peru is really a beautiful plant, and I really wanted it to do well. The one that I bought, I had it for about a year and it was doing really well. It was still very juvenile, I would say maybe 5 leaves, but it was stunning and looked so healthy. And then I went to Quebec on a holiday, and when I came back, it had lost a whole bunch of leaves, and there was like 2 or 3 leaves had fallen off, and there was 1 leaf still hanging on that was all yellow. I did not see thrips damage because at that point I was kind of paranoid about thrips. I didn't see any thrips damage. However, this plant was really close to my vent, and it's possible that it just got really dried out from the vent. That is my current theory, that it just got really dried out, and because I wasn't here to see that and move it and just sort of baby it once it got dried out, it just got really dried out. That is my theory, but as you saw with the Mykins, it's possible that that happened in addition to some pests, or maybe I overwatered it and then left, and all, like, it might have been a coincidence that the damage happened while I was gone, but I am thinking it was a vent. Obviously, we don't always know what went wrong with the plants, but it looked really healthy when I left for my trip, and when I came back, that is what I found. If that is all that happened, it should grow back, but it doesn't look great. So today I'm actually going to take the plant out of the soil and have a look at what's going on underneath. It's possible that there's some root rot and I didn't realize that. Monsteras, I was saying I don't love Monsteras. I just find that I often don't fully understand the watering schedule for Monsteras. I feel like I either underwater or overwater almost all the time, and maybe Monstera Peru had the same experience. So I'm not fully sure, but what I did when I came home and found it struggling is I tried to leave on that yellow leaf that was still hanging on, but it did eventually fall off. I did spray it with my neem oil, my DIY neem oil spray, just in case there was some type of pest that I couldn't see. The soil was dry, so I did water it sparingly. I didn't want to put it into shock or anything, give it tons of water, so I watered it sparingly. I haven't fertilized or anything. This one, of all the plants, I don't know that this one's gonna make it. And the reason I feel a little bit hesitant is just because it's a Monstera, and I don't feel like I have the Monstera touch right now in my planty journey, but who knows? Who knows? It is still alive, and because Monstera Peru is so beautiful, I really want to save this. I'm going to do everything I can to save it, and And also this pot combination is terrible. Maybe that's why I dyed it, felt ugly. All right, I had said that the Monstera Peru was the most hopeless struggling plant, but actually I found this one in the office. This was also in isolation and I think it may have passed away. This was a Philodendron Bilietiae propagation, and I had a Philodendron Bilietiae and I chopped it and I sold the cuttings, but I kept one for myself, and now the one I kept for myself I believe has passed away. I'm gonna dig this up and see. I don't see anything. There was a little stem for a while and now it just has disappeared. So we'll look into this. If there is something in here, obviously I will show you how I treat it. But this, I think I might dig it up and there'll just be a rotten little root ball. Too bad. It was just a really small plant, so it's not the end of the world if I lost it, but I would have liked to have saved it. So Monstera Peru is now second most pathetic plant that I have. This is the most pathetic plant because I don't actually know if there's a plant still in there. And my last struggling plant that I'm going to talk about today is my Philodendron Varshovichia. Now this plant has been struggling since I brought it home. It was a rescue plant. I am totally fine with trying to rescue this plant. It is showing a lot of promise and it is a stunning plant. It is worth the effort in my opinion. However, when I left for my trip to Quebec, this plant had, I think, 3 leaves that were bigger than this and sort of the mature leaf form. They were larger, they were looking good when I left for my trip, and when I got back, they had yellowed significantly. They were kind of dried up. And then this leaf does have a little bit of damage on it. It looks like thrips damage. This plant probably had thrips when I brought it home. It definitely was in a really rough shape. That's okay. When I brought it home, I sprayed it down with my neem oil thing and I isolated it, and then it started putting out those leaves. It was looking good and I thought that maybe it was on the up and up, but turns out it needs a little bit more TLC. That is fine. I'm okay with that. I really, really want this plant to do well. I have a lot of hope that it will do well. The fact that it's putting out these little baby leaves, those leaves have all come in since doing the treatments that I'm going to talk about. So I think it is healthy. I think it's happy. I just think it's still fighting off the thrips or whatever happened to it while I was gone. It's possible also, I talked about the thrips, but it's also possible that I overwatered this plant. I was really babying it and I added some fertilizers and things like that, and I might have overdone it. Because this is a new plant to me, I'm still figuring out the watering, obviously. So that is also another possibility. It might not have been all thrips, because this thrips damage, I mean, it looks old, but I didn't actually see a thrip on the plant. Although you saw with my Mykins, I don't always see everything. So I'm really hopeful that I can save this plant. It's adorable, it's beautiful, and I will show you what I've been doing to get this beautiful new growth back. And hopefully I can get this plant really big and bushy. This plant is beautiful when mature. I really want this plant to do well. All right, I'm going to take you into my kitchen now. That's where we're gonna do all the plant care today. Before I start treating the plants, I am going to dig up whatever might be in the Bilietiae pot as well as the Monstera Peru pot, just to see what's going on under the soil. And I'm probably gonna repot the Peru. I don't even know why it's in this pot. I think it was in a different cover pot and then things got switched around, but let's just see what's going on under the soil for these two, and then hopefully we can just treat everything together. That will be a little bit more efficient. Now, normally I wouldn't be repotting in my kitchen, but I just cleaned my living room really thoroughly yesterday. I don't really want to do that again. And the kitchen, I was going to mop the floor today anyway, but I am gonna put out my nice plant mat just to keep things as tidy as possible. Now, yeah, so this also, like there's some water that was accumulated in the cover pot, and that also when I was saying I might have overwatered this also kind of makes me think I'm still overwatering this plant, which that's too bad. Okay, so I'm hoping that I can just repot it into this smaller terracotta. I do like when my plants have a smaller footprint if possible, especially a plant that is struggling like this. Don't really want it to be taking a whole bunch of room. We'll see what's going on. Okay, so there are roots here. They don't seem dead or mushy. Sometimes when it's just like a ropey root like this, I will just rip it or cut it and see. And yeah, it's definitely still alive. And I know that you shouldn't do that to all the roots in your plant, of course, because it will shock it, but sometimes it's hard to tell if a root is alive. So kind of like a branch, if you just cut it, you can see what's going on inside. So these roots are definitely still alive, but it does feel really dry in there. So I don't know why there's so much water in the cover pot. Basically, maybe this plant just wanted to be repotted and was being dramatic. And I've read conflicting things. Some people say that Monsteras like to be kind of root bound and that helps them push out lots of new leaves. And then other people say they like to have a lot of extra soil and don't want to be root bound. But I think it's just something I need to figure out in my house. What do Monsteras like? This is my only Monstera at the moment. I had a regular Monstera deliciosa and it died, but I also wasn't really taking very good care of it. I don't know, I'm not a Monstera person. I like the really big old ones where the leaves are huge. I love those, but I don't know that I'll ever be able to get to that point. I'm just gonna throw this leca in there. I don't know that I'll ever get to that point unless someone just gives me a fully mature Monstera, because I don't have a lot of patience for them. Okay, so Peru is still alive. We will treat that with the other guys. And now, now let's look into the Philodendron Bilietiae. I don't see anything here. There's not even a rotten, oh. That's a piece of perlite. Okay, yeah, this is the plant. Oh, it isn't totally dead, but I don't know that it's gonna grow anything. So that's what it looks like. There is, you know, some signs of life. I think it's worth a try since it's a Bilietiae. So I'm gonna make sure the roots are covered, but I'm gonna keep the stem kind of near the top there so that it doesn't rot. I mean, it might rot anyway, but less likely to rot. But there is still something in there, so we will try to save that. Okay, so I'll just clean this up and then we will get on to the treatments. Obviously, there are many ways to treat struggling plants. This is what works for me. Because these are my house plants, they are in my house, I have a cozy little home, I have 2 kids, I have 2 dogs. I prefer to use more natural products. Obviously, I want them to be functional as well, but I don't really feel comfortable spraying my plants down with really strong pesticides. I know that some people are very serious collectors. They can't afford or they're not willing to have any pests at all at any point, and so they'll go really heavy with the pesticides. You do what you feel comfortable with. I personally like to go as naturally and as gently as possible, but obviously I want things still to work. So that's kind of just a little segue into what I'm gonna be doing today. If you don't like it, that is okay, but it works for me. Okay, so we'll put all these plants in here. I like to treat my plants in the sink. That way the mess is minimal. Okay, this one, go over here. Now, step one of my weekly healing routine for these plants is to spray them with a foliar spray, but like I said, I'm not using my more intense neem oil spray. This is a foliar spray from Sacred Elements. And with this spray, you dilute it with water so you can make it as mild as you like. I'm making it fairly mild today because I have been using it once a week. So you add the concentrate and then you just add water. Because this is all natural, I do prefer to mix up a batch right before I use it. I just feel like it is more potent when fresh, like most things. Mix it up. And I'm not going to use this whole bottle on these plants, but I'm going to go spray all my other plants once I'm done. And this is going to help protect from pests, help prevent future pests from coming. It helps kill any pests that are already on the plant. And then it's also giving nutrients to the plant. I feel like with pest treatment, you want to strengthen your plant in addition to treating the pests. Often you're getting pests because your plant is not as strong as it could be. In the home, your houseplants already don't have the benefit of all of the natural beneficial bugs that would be on them when they are outside. So you don't want to kill off all of the beneficial bacteria as well. And so it would make sense that using a more natural product that isn't going to kill off everything would actually be more beneficial to your plants. This leaf tonic also smells amazing. Our next step in treating struggling plants is to make sure that you are feeding them nutrients that they need, because right now they are fighting off pests, but they are also trying to grow leaves so that they can get energy from the sun. We really want these baby leaves to start appearing because that way the plant can start healing itself because it will have more energy. So if you are treating a struggling plant and you start to see little baby leaves come out, that is a good sign. It means the plant is on its way to recovery. I have been alternating between these two. Thrive is a kelp-based plant food. It is just all seaweed made in Canada. I love this. I have been diluting it even more than they say to. So I've been adding just like half a drop to my bottle of water and then watering them. Because I am doing it once a week, I don't want to add too much. And then every other week I've been using the soil tonic from Sacred Elements. This also has kelp in it. And the reason I really like to use kelp for struggling plants is it helps reduce shock. When we're doing all of these things, spraying down the leaves, repotting, cutting off leaves, we are potentially putting plants in shock. And kelp helps the plant resist shock. So that's really, really helpful. It also has extracts from plants like comfrey, horsetail, nettle, aloe, all the good things that are going to help nourish these plants and bring them back to life. Today I'm using the Sacred Elements because I used Thrive last week. And again, like the Thrive, I am diluting this even more than is suggested because I am using it quite often. And like the leaf tonic, I do like to mix this up right before I use it. Now, obviously I don't need to use this ridiculous bottle, but I like to because it makes me feel like a scientist. And I'm gonna add the Billietier in there. Obviously I didn't have to spray that one down because there's nothing to spray. And now we are going to just water and feed these babies. The reason this one is kind of sudsy is because it has soap nuts in it, which contains saponins, which of course are in soap as well. Helps oxygenate the soil. And I don't know, in my mind, it's kind of cleaning the soil, but that could totally be just what I think. It's not a claim that I have read anywhere. I'm gonna use the whole bottle. These need water, and Might as well give them all the goodness. Here we go. All right, so that is my routine for treating my struggling plants. And honestly, as I was doing it with the camera rolling, I did have a moment where I realized my routine for struggling plants might appear very extra. And you can definitely do a more quick and dirty routine if you have struggling plants. As long as you are treating any potential pests and feeding your plants, you will be helping your plants. Honestly, the way I approach my plant hobby is I like to spoil my plants. I like to take really good care of them. I like them to thrive because they are well taken care of. That's just me. That's how I approach this hobby. I fully recognize that to some people that might seem a little bit odd, a little bit over the top, and maybe it is, but I really love my plants and I want them to be happy. So I enjoy spoiling them. I do. I enjoy it. I fully enjoyed everything I just did. It was fun. It was relaxing. If you aren't like me, you just want to spray it down, you want them to survive, that is all good, no judgment. Please don't judge me. It works for me. I have brought many, many plants back from the brink of death doing a similar routine. And the fact that those baby leaves have started appearing tells me that what I'm doing is working. It's giving me hope, except for the Billietiae. That one I'm not sure. The Peru, we'll see. I will for sure update you all in a few months as to how those plants are doing, which ones make it, which ones don't. Maybe they all will make it. But that is all from me for today. I hope you have a really, really wonderful day. I hope you are doing well. I hope your plants are doing well, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.